Well, hey, I am with my pastor, Pastor Eric, and we're going to have a general conversation around some church stuff. And I'm super excited just to ask him a couple questions. It's been super awesome just to get to know Pastor Eric the past couple years. I've been going to my city for about 2 years. Pastor Eric, do you want to share a little bit about you, your story, and how you found my city and how we became connected?
Yeah, so I grew up in a pastor's house, so I've been a pastor's kid since I was, geez, 3.5, 4 years old, and from that, my parents have always been in the mindset that they go where God's calling them, and so we moved around a little bit, lived in small college town in Illinois for a bit. Then my dad helped do a church in a suburb of Chicago, and then we lived in Salt Lake City for a bit, and then moved to Bellevue, Nebraska, which is just a suburb outside of Omaha, for those who don't know. And then my parents then planted a church right whenever I graduated high school, and I became an intern for in a discipleship program called Bellevue Master's Commission, which was a high intensive year-long program where you do Bible college classes and all sorts of things, and lots of prayer, lots of studying. And then after that experience, I ran a couple small groups for some youth ministries, and from there, really just wanted to figure out what ministry looked like for me. Moved down to Fort Myers, Florida, and worked for a very large church down there, and in a young adult ministry, and just kind of honestly really figured out that ministry was a calling of mine, not a calling of, you know, my heritage. It wasn't just my father, my mother's calling, but it was mine.
Hmm.
And at the same time, I think God works kind of in the same way. I met my wife down in Florida. We moved back up here to help plant a church in kind of an area of Omaha that has very like arts and culture area called the Old Market. And as we were running that church, it was a really good experience, but more of a learning experience for me of what it really takes to plant a church, and being underneath that. We ended up closing the doors as we were facing a bunch of financial hardship. And around that same time, I got to meet our lead pastor here in my city church, Jesse and Angela Norman. And they really just took my wife and I under their wing, just loved us, took care of us, allowed us to learn and grow under their ministry. And in that process, I had been pastoring before. Now they then offered some further pastoring roles, and over time they opened up this idea of planting a campus back in that downtown Omaha area, and it's something that we've always loved, and that's where we are now, is
Wow.
planting and growing.
Yeah, I love it. Now we're here.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Quarantine church plant times two.
yeah,
Um, yeah, so obviously we've had more time to kind of isolate and have some more alone time. Obviously, you have kids and a wife, so it might look a little different. But what are some things that you've been processing during the moments of isolation, or kind of adapting to this new
hmm
area of life season?
yeah. Well, it was really interesting. Like you said, we went from planting a church to suddenly quarantining a church. Um, we we were running a campus for 6 weeks, and then suddenly all this happened. And so, what does that look like, and how do you feel, and how do you adapt? And one of the things that I think I'm actually really appreciative of the team that we are building, and I'm saying building because we got a relaunch and we got things that we are
Yeah.
already doing, but is we were already in a season of do whatever it takes to grow the church, and so it wasn't hard to convince in our church plant the leaders that are in our church, the team members of our church, to go that extra mile. spend that extra time, do that extra Zoom call, go, be a part of it in a way that I think some other friends of mine who are running churches have struggled with, is just trying to keep their people motivated.
Yeah.
Uh, the way that we see motivation, I think, in church is seeing lives changed, freedom happening, and when you don't feel that, you don't see that, it's hard to feel like you're part of a movement, feel like you're part of what the kingdom of God is doing.
Right.
One of the things that I think at the very beginning of this that God really revealed to me, is that he didn't stop moving because of a pandemic.
Right.
In
So
fact, that
good.
he's a God of opportunity. I wouldn't be as bold to say that you see on Facebook or something like that. You
Right.
some mom from middle Nebraska going like, maybe this was God's way of telling us to slow down. Like, honestly, I don't think God is a God of slowing down.
Right.
I think he's a God of opportunity. He looks at the hurt and the broken, and he sees healing and
Yeah.
freedom within that, and he just asks for his people to partner with him. And
Right. It's so good.
so I think that's really what it's been for me on a personal level. It's been a weird adjustment, going going from sending kids to daycare and school to suddenly homeschooling and
Right.
balancing life, and being married. You got to figure out date nights, and you got to be creative, but then you're kind of cooped up with people all the time. And so
Right.
I think we're even just now, this far in, just now really starting to set a rhythm in our house where we play games together, we do homework together. And so I think one of the big lessons just in family was just the more that we do together, the less that we feel apart, which I
Yeah.
know that sounds kind of duh, but um, in a busy kind of urban lifestyle, you just end up kind of occupying the same place, but never really doing things together.
Yeah.
And so putting on the phone, turning off the TV,
Hmm.
sitting out of a meeting once or twice so that, your kid knows that you see them is really valuable for me, and a tough lesson to learn because I had to learn that I wasn't doing that. And then I had to start doing that. So,
Yeah. Well, I'll have you know, you guys were on date night, like two parking garages away from the parking garage I was on.
oh, nice.
I was
That's great.
like on your guys' page, and I was like, you guys are what? I sent Pastor Natalie a Marco Polo, and I was like, where are you? I don't see you.
That's great.
Get a
Yeah.
binocular.
We stole that idea from you and Lexi. We're just like, oh yeah, parking garage. It's like $1,
Right.
at the top, and just sit there. So, yeah, it's a great idea.
It was a vibe until it was really windy, and my team was like blowing away, and it was like, yeah, great idea, Lexi. Just kidding. Put it all on her. Now, so what are some things? This is a good transition. What are some things you think the church in general should look at for the future to like carry on from where we are to the next season? What do you think we should carry into that next season of being back into our churches in that
Yeah,
building?
yeah. I think it's a really good question. One of the things that I know I had to quickly adapt to, and figure out and pray about is, what does a church even mean?
Right.
Is it a Sunday service? And I think there's a part of it. Is it a worship time? Is it high production value? Is it small groups? And um, one of the things that I think this time really forced us and our staff here at the church is going, what is valuable?
Mhm.
And we have a pastor, one of his kind of key phrases here is move the needle. Like he just says that does that move the needle? Does that move the needle forward? Is it going and um, and I think that it's an important question that was in this. And my hope is that we continue to kind of think of things that way. It, I think there's a tendency in churches in general, especially American churches, of this is just what we do.
Mhm.
Well, this is how we do offering, and this is how we do announcements, well, and this is how we preach a message, and this, and I think the, you know, I think the message of, Jesus stays the same, but how we present that has to adapt with
Right.
the culture and the season that we're in. And I think a really cool thing that this made churches do is bring out creativity and push people into asking some really hard questions. For years, as I was, pastoring in another church, I was bivocational, and I worked for a manufacturing plant, and I was a process analyst and a quality assurance representative. And
Mm.
sounds exciting.
You really found your calling on that, you know what I mean?
For a paper box manufacturing company, and so, but one of the things that they train you in process management is asking why. Well, why do we do this? Is it, and I think the question that I know I'm asking myself pretty consistently each week, and I hope other church leaders are doing the same, is why am I doing this? Am I doing this to create religious ritual? Am I doing this to, uh, just get an action? Am I doing this just because, a board member, a leader, a family pressured me into something? Uh,
Hmm.
or am I doing this because this is biblical? This
Yeah.
is what God wants me to do. That's one of, I think, the great things about fasting is it puts that really into focus. When you deny yourself of something, suddenly you have to focus on what you can do in order to fill that empty spot. So I'm hungry. Everything in me is telling me, go grab that food, or go grab that, take that, morning off, and then just add an extra day to the end of your fast or something.
Right.
And the more that you commit to the denial of yourself, the more that I think God reveals himself in a new way. And that's what this season was.
Yeah.
Is If we think of it as a season of fasting where God brought focus to the things that we were doing, well, if the same things he's speaking to you right now, he's speaking to you 6 months from now. If God's the same yesterday, today, and forever, his message didn't change to you. So I think in this moment where I know for me in my prayer time, I feel like God's speaking in so many different ways, so many creative ways, and he's forcing me to ask the question, why? Um, does that why stay the same?
Yeah.
If I had to stop that meeting and my church actually grew and continued to thrive in this season, well, I don't need to pick that meeting back up again. I need to double down on what God was doing. And because he didn't change his season, we changed. So
Right.
I think that's a big thing for at least for me going into relaunching a church downtown.
No, I think it's like we always say it at my city, just like the method changes, but the message is the same. So it's like,
Yeah.
doesn't matter where we are, we're still the church and we're still moving and we're still bringing something to a city that might never see something like my city. So that's so awesome.
Yeah.
So kind of transitioning, if there was somebody watching this video and let's say they like their spiritual disciplines are down, or they may not even like believe in what we believe or understand what like the whole church thing is. They just thought it was like this Sunday ritual that they had to wear a tie to. What would you say to a person like that watching this video?
Yeah. I'd say, uh, and this might be a little bit of aggressive language for some people, but come back home.
Yeah.
My favorite story that I believe Jesus told mainly to tell us how to do salvation calls is the prodigal son.
Hmm.
He tells three stories back to back of lost items. So the lost sheep, the lost coin, and then the lost son, the prodigal son coming home. And that prodigal son being, uh, you know, we see to kind of recap for anybody who maybe wouldn't know. A man has great wealth, and he has a son who goes to his father and says, "Give me my inheritance now, so that I might do what I want with it." The
Hmm.
son goes and spoils it on gambling and food and everything in between, and finds himself in a pigsty. And he kind of has this realization moment of, if I even just go back to my father's house and work for him, I would still have a better life than I have right now. And so he goes back to his father. And in the story, it says, from a long way off, the father saw the son and ran to him and put a robe and put a ring on his finger and claimed him as his son again, essentially gave him back his inheritance. And the son did nothing to deserve that. Yet still, he was given everything in order to have that. And I think that's the message for anybody that you're in this season and maybe you were in the faith and man, I just be with you in this. I empathize, I sympathize with you. It's been hard. It's been hard to keep a prayer life. It's been hard to be the type of person that I know I should be and I want to be, when everything's in me is telling me to overeat, to sleep in, to cut corners, to isolate.
Yeah.
Not just isolate physically, but just isolate from people. And in that, like, just the weirdest mindsets. And then we start buying into our insecurities and our doubts and our fears. I want to join you with that, and that I've been there. I'm with you. Here's the difference between and what the hope I want to give you is that there's a simple choice that we can make to come back to this, to come back to a life that is full of life, full of love and happiness and joy and patience and kindness and goodness and what the Bible calls the fruits of the Spirit. And that's a simple turnaround and say, I want to go home.
Yeah.
I want to go back home. And my favorite part of the story is it says the father from a long way off saw the son and ran to him. I want anybody who's watching this to know that God sees you. He's been waiting for you to just turn around and look at him. And he's going to meet you closer and he's going to find you and he's going to run to you faster than you can run to him.
Yeah.
So ready for you, and he's so ready to bring you up into his arms and just say, come back and be in my house again. And so that's, it's a message I have for people, man, as much as I can is, it's not about right action. It's not about right thoughts. It's about the right spirit.
Right.
When we can align that inner part of us into what God has for us, our lives can so quickly turn around. It doesn't mean good things happen. It means our perspective on what is good changes.
Yeah.
We serve a good God. So
It's so good. Just kind of ending the conversation with this. If you had to summarize this whole conversation and really put it into a statement or just your final statement towards church leaders, what would you say to a church leader watching this?
Yeah, Jesus kind of laid out his great commandment really simply: love God and love people.
Yeah.
Again, there's this time that the church was the leader of creativity and culture in the world, and we handed that over. And at that point, I believe the church stopped loving people and loving God. And I know I want to be at the forefront of this battle, and I hope every church leader is. This is an opportunity for us to come back and to bring that message loud and clear to people. There's no greater message than that, than to love God, and then from that love, then just love people.
Yeah. It's so good. Well, thank you so much for being on, Pastor Eric. You're the best. Looking forward to seeing you in like a couple days. So thanks for
Awesome.
being on.
Yeah, love you, man.